Welcome to Speak English with Energy.
Hey there, welcome to Speak English with Energy.
Today we're talking about the number one interview mistake non-native speakers make.
You know, I've been in interviews where I felt really nervous. My mind went blank, and I stumbled over my words.
That can be really frustrating, especially if you're trying to make a good impression. Imagine you're sitting in a conference room and everyone's waiting for you to speak. Your heart's racing, and you're trying to remember the right words to say.
It's a common problem, and it's not just about being nervous. There are specific mistakes that non-native speakers make that can hurt their chances of getting the job.
So, let's dive in and explore what that number one mistake is.
And more importantly, how you can avoid making it in your next interview. I had a friend who was really struggling with this. He was applying for jobs left and right, but couldn't seem to land one. He'd get to the final interview, and then something would go wrong.
That's really frustrating. What was going wrong exactly?
Well, it turned out he was making a very common mistake. He was focusing too much on the individual words, rather than the conversation as a whole.
So, he was getting lost in the details, rather than seeing the big picture.
Exactly, and it was causing him to come across as nervous and unconfident.
I can imagine how that would be really tough for him.
Yeah, it was, but once he realized what was going on, he was able to make some changes. He started practicing his English in a more conversational way. And he worked on building his confidence so he could focus on the conversation, not just the individual words.
That makes sense, and it's a great tip for our listeners.
Definitely, and it's something we'll be exploring more in this episode. One common misconception is that interview practice is just about answering questions.
That sounds right, but what's the problem with that approach?
Well, my friend Alex was preparing for a job interview, and he focused only on common interview questions. He learned all the typical answers, but when it came to the actual interview, he froze up. The interviewer asked him a question that wasn't on his list, and he didn't know how to respond.
Oh no, that's really tough. What did he do?
He realized that he needed to practice his English in a more conversational way, like we discussed earlier. So, he started speaking with native speakers and focusing on his pronunciation and fluency.
That makes sense, because it's not just about knowing the answers, it's about being able to communicate them clearly.
Exactly, and that's what we want to emphasize to our listeners: the importance of conversational practice.
What if our listeners don't have access to native speakers, though?
There are still plenty of resources available, like online language exchange platforms and speaking practice apps.
Those are great options. We should share some of those resources with our listeners.
Definitely, we'll make sure to include some links in our show notes. One tip is to practice speaking in front of a mirror.
That's a great idea. It helps you see your body language.
Exactly, and record yourself to identify areas for improvement.
I did that once, and I was surprised by my accent.
It's eye-opening, right, to hear yourself speak?
Yes, and it made me work on my pronunciation.
Pronunciation is key, especially during interviews.
What's the most common mistake non-native speakers make?
Not pausing before answering a question.
That's a good point, taking a moment to think.
It allows you to gather your thoughts and respond clearly.
And it shows confidence, rather than rushing into an answer.
So, try pausing for a second before responding this week.
That's a great challenge for our listeners to work on. I recall a job interview where I used this technique. The interviewer asked about my previous experience. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before answering.
That's a great example, Lisa. Very relatable. I've been in similar situations where I had to think quickly. But taking that brief pause can make a big difference.
Absolutely, it shows you're considering your response carefully. And it gives you a chance to choose your words more wisely.
Which can help avoid misunderstandings or miscommunications. Especially in high-stakes conversations, like job interviews. So, to recap, the main points are about being confident and taking your time.
Right, and also being aware of your body language during the interview.
Exactly, and one actionable tip is to pause before answering a question.
Which allows you to gather your thoughts and respond clearly, showing confidence.
That's a great way to put it, and I think our listeners will really benefit from trying this out.
Definitely, and it's such a simple yet effective technique to improve your interview skills.
I've seen it work for many non-native speakers who were nervous about interviews.
And it's not just about the speaking, it's about feeling more comfortable and in control.
Which is really what our podcast is all about, helping you speak English with confidence and energy.
Well said, Victor, and I think we've covered some really valuable points today.
Goodbye, and see you next time on Speak English with Energy.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking English with energy. See you in the next episode.